an insane proposition. Of course that's not true. It's the is-ought problem. Like, unless you want to take on Hume and make an explicit argument to me why the is-ought problem doesn't exist, I would love to hear it. I am dying to hear it. I am so interested in hearing it. But he's not making it. He's actually kind of assuming it like it's a given. And it's ridiculous. I don't understand how he thinks this is a reasonable thing to say, to be honest with you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the War of Ideas. Today, we have a very special reaction. This has been titled The Greatest Moment in Pangburn History. That's a question that we are seeking to answer, but the more important question is... Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the War of Ideas. Today, we have a very special reaction for you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the War of Ideas. Today, we have a very special reaction waiting for you today. And the question today is this exchange that you're about to watch Jordan Peterson's greatest defeat? That was on the thumbnail of the original video. We are here to watch, break it down, and ultimately to answer that question. So, let's get into it.
Belief is the state of being convinced that a proposition is true or likely true. It's everything that I try to do, I tend to view in the form of propositional reasoning. So when we talk about the narrative...
Please do not forget to like and subscribe to this video, and also, if you have the heart to, go over and like the original video as well. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a problem, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you can't reduce the world to a set of propositions.
Why not?
Oh. Look.
Show me something that is true in the world that is not a proposition.
Like an explicit, stateable proposition.
Well, this is I think that this is the conflict that's going to be the target of what the thumbnail said, which is his greatest defeat, is that the world cannot be articulated purely in propositions. I tend to agree with this, at least in terms of pragmatic purposes. I think you might be able to technically articulate the world as only a series of propositions, but I do not think human beings have the ability to act in their day-to-day life or in almost any real-world scenario based on that type of understanding and description of the world. That's how I would say it. Just because you can reduce basically anything down to a proposition doesn't mean that interpreting reality in that way is usable or useful to humans. And to me, I tend to view truth partially as something that is pragmatic. Now, I'm not relative. I think it's pragmatic in relativity to a objectively good goal that I hold, and, you know, we can talk about that in another date. But I will say that it depends on what Peterson means by the world not being able to be reduced to propositions. If he means that technically, in terms of, not technically in terms of psychoanalysis, but in terms of, in the barest sense, is that you simply cannot articulate it as a proposition, even if you tried, then I think he's probably wrong. But if we know good old Dr. Peterson, he probably doesn't mean what he's saying in the most literal and context-stripped sense. So, that's the two options I see this conversation going down. Let's see what happens.
Proposition?
Something that is demonstrably true that I could not put in a proposition.
Oh, that's easy.
Okay.
Sure you want to go there?
I'm not afraid of anything.
Okay. Okay.
If I'm wrong, I want to know I'm wrong. But I'm trying to, for years I had this thing going where people would say, oh, and this is kind of what we're getting at from a different angle. I would say, they would be afraid of what we would lose if we lost religion. And I basically said, demonstrate to me any benefit.
Oh, you'd lose art and poetry and drama and narrative and
why?
story.
You'd also lose an awful lot of tradition that, while maybe not understood in the moment as to why it's useful, if you lose it, you'll only understand why it was useful after it's gone. There's a lot of risk of that. We're experiencing a lot of that right about now with, you know, utopian ideas and ideas that we can make ourselves and make the world into whatever we'd like it to be. The loss of religion, or as I would put it, the loss of tradition, absolutely has massive downsides. And I think that if one has their eyes open and you look around, you can see the downsides of that in the West, basically everywhere.
Are there no godless artists and poets?
There are artists and poets who think they're godless.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is this clip. Yeah, that'll make people angry.
So we might have crossed over into a problem area because
no doubt.
I can't draw for crap, although I do draw during the show.
So I was wrong earlier about predicting that propositions are the way we're going. I think we're going to go down this direction, which is unfortunate because Peterson had an interesting threat there, saying, are you sure you want to go down that rabbit hole? If I ever get the chance to talk to Dr. Peterson, I'd love to pick his brain on that one and see what he was going to say. But I think that we are going down this much more exciting. I think we're going to go down this much more exciting route. Can you be godless and also be an artist? Who knows? Peterson thinks no.
But one of the individuals who came to the show the other night handed me something that she had spent a great deal of time drawing. She's a wonderful artist. I'm very grateful to get it. And, while I pretend to read minds on stage, I constantly acknowledge that I can't actually read minds. So I can't tell you whether or not she actually believes in a God, but I can tell you that I actually don't believe in a God, and I could write poetry.
But you act like you do.
Huh?
But you act like you do. That's why you didn't want to throw poor Sam off the stage.
No.
Well, this is the critical thing about Peterson, is that he does not use the word believe the same way that rationalist atheists do. He also tends to think that what is true is the ideas that you actually live out and bet your life on, more so than the ideas that you express with your mouth and the ideas that you may hold in your head. It's an interesting approach. It's also extremely abrasive in the way that he is delivering it, in a way that I think is quite funny. Dillahunty is actually being a very good sport about it, which is always nice. People tend to get really angry at Peterson, which, I don't understand why. He's kind of even when he's being kind of abrasive, it's always in a somewhat goofy way. That's his definition, and I'm pretty sure most of this conflict is based on that definitional split.
No, now you're making a claim. Okay, so I'm telling you I don't believe there's a God. And your response to that is, I really do, because I have a moral sense. But my moral sense is utterly without any appeal to a God.
Explicitly.
Or implicitly.
Well, maybe. That's not so obvious.
Okay, it's really
because
it's
you
easy.
regard Sam Harris as an implicitly valuable entity, because otherwise you'd just throw him off the stage. And then the question is, well, just exactly why is he an implicitly valuable entity? What's your metaphysics of that?
I don't think he's implicitly valuable in the sense,
Well, that's actually a problem, though, because with Dillahunty, first of all, hilarious, but also that's actually a serious issue, because if Dillahunty's morality does not assume the implicit value of human beings, you get into some really dark territory really quickly if you don't see human beings as implicitly valuable. Some of the greatest atrocities of all time were committed because of a lack of belief in that thing. Now, of course, I'm not calling Dillahunty genocidal or genocidally minded. I am not. Many of the people who disagree with me, I do not wantonly accuse people of genocide. But that line of thought does have some massive pitfalls. And so let's see how he deals with that.
I don't think he's implicitly valuable in the sense that the universe has implied that there's something explicit about it. For me, morality is far simpler than some people.
No, wait, you sounded doubtful about that. That
maybe you're the mind reader.
Psychoanalysis mode activated.
Well, maybe.
Because you've already suggested that despite me sitting here and having talked about this for decades, that I don't believe in God, that I actually do because I have a moral code. But my moral code, which I've
I was more specific. I said it was because you didn't want to throw Sam off the stage.
Yes, but you didn't.
Peterson is being such a goddamn gadfly here. This is actually my favorite conversation that Pangburn has ever done, because it puts Peterson is very much in a jester role in this conversation, and it's really refreshing. Recently Peterson's been very serious and angry. unfortunately. Maybe we're gonna have a Royal Rumble about that. If it's not out now, it will be out soon, talking about why he's been so angry recently. But in this conversation, he gets to be more of a jester and a gadfly, and I think it's very funny. Dillahunty's starting to get a little bit irritated, but I don't think we're in really dangerous territory yet.
You didn't even attempt to ask me why I didn't throw Sam off the stage. Instead, you went to, why do you think Sam has implicit value? Because it seems that in your narrative,
I'm willing
that's
to go
the
there.
only justification.
Well, maybe you were afraid of being punished.
I think no.
Oh,
I think you can have a perfectly acceptable foundation for secular morality, even if it fundamentally centers around selfishness. I'd rather not be thrown off the stage. It's in my best interest to encourage that sort of understanding in others, and therefore I will not throw him off the stage. I would.
Well, first of all, I think that you're really stretching the definition of the term morality if you're saying it's purely based in self-interest. But secondly, that argument falls flat really fucking quickly because, sorry, no F words. That argument falls apart really quickly because if his only motive for not throwing Sam off the stage is because he wants to encourage that sense in society. I mean, anybody with his moral sense who has no desire to encourage that sense in society, perhaps because they are in a position of extreme power, will not be bounded by Dillahunty's morality at all. Or further, if somebody in Dillahunty's shoes didn't think that their particular action would encourage such behavior and it wouldn't have that much of an impact, then it'd be perfectly permissible. If he threw Sam off the stage in secret, it should be fine because it's sending no message to society about what's acceptable and what's not. This is I know Dillahunty's a somewhat serious thinker, but to me, this type of standard seems utterly demented. This seems completely unreasonable. There's no way this has any real force in restricting people's actions, especially in secret. That's absurd. That's a crazy standard.
I would rather not have my stuff stolen, and it's in my best interest to encourage others not to do that, so I will not steal stuff, and I will work with others to ensure that the people who steal stuff are punished. It is in a virtually pragmatic moral system.
Why do you think it's not in your best interest to have stuff stolen from you or to be thrown off the stage?
So my objections are right, but Peterson's is better because he's cutting to the deeper part of the issue, which is, sure, you can construct a system of pragmatic morality in relativity to certain goals, like the ones he listed, but why are those goals good in the first place? What's your a priori assumptions? What are you assuming? And when you ask somebody in a morality conversation what they are assuming or what they are taking as their starting premises, you're basically asking them what they're taking on faith. And for Peterson, he's essentially asking, isn't that your God?
Why is it not in my best interest?
Yeah. No, you don't get to think, oh, that's self-evident. It's like nothing's self-evident to the skeptic. Let's keep that in mind.
Oh.
Feisty with the
Well,
audience.
so,
because if we're going to get skeptical here, we might as well go all the way to the bottom.
In Pangburn's defense, the crowd is definitely on Dillahunty's side here, so I understand why this might look bad for Peterson because the crowd's against him and he's getting a little bit feisty with them. But I think in terms of like what's going on like the actual philosophical level, I'd say it's somewhat even. I think Peterson's defending the position that he holds as best as one in his position probably could. So nothing, no real knockouts yet, I don't think. We'll see.
For Sam and I, the foundations, and we're not the only ones, but I tend to reference Sam just because if I say this, then somebody will say, well, that's exactly what Sam Harris says, except that, I was given this lecture before he wrote his book. But his book is better than my lecture, so read his book. When I talk about this, I'm talking about well-being is the language that Sam uses.
Oh,
I don't.
Sad.
I don't care whether or not somebody else considers that morality.
It sounds like the end of a Trump tweet. Sad. Yeah, that's amazing. I don't think that's what he was going for, but again, he's very much in the gesture role here. But again, the problem arises is why is well-being morally good? I mean, it's the is-ought problem. I've beaten this horse to death on my channel, and I will continue to do so until rationalist atheists deal with it, because the is-ought problem is really important. And just assuming well-being is all well and good, but you're not telling me metaphysically why well-being is morally good, or why it's morally good. Fundamentally, you're taking it on faith.
I would think at a minimum, would you and I agree that
that whole well-being thing, man, as a basis for a metaphysics, that's just a non-starter.
We're not basing metaphysics on it.
Sam is.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is, because he's out to maximize well-being.
You can take it up with Sam.
Well, okay, sorry. Do you think I'm wrong? Because he's out to maximize well-being.
You can take it up with Sam.
Well, okay, sorry. Do you think I'm wrong about that claim? That's what I understood.
I don't think Sam's saying anything metaphysical about it. I think so. Here's the thing: we are physical beings.
Well, it's his fundamental claim, so it's sort of at the basis of his ethic. And so he says, well, we should work to maximize people's well-being, or at least to. Well, he does a bit more than that, because he says we should minimize their suffering.
He's not maximize, minimize in this sense of simple consequentialism. Let me do this.
Okay.
We're physical beings in a physical universe, and the laws that dictate how things work in the universe, they are the ultimate arbiters of what is or isn't in our best interest, whether we know it or not. So
no, that's absurd. That's not true. That's like saying that the game board and its existence, and maybe even the game board dictates how to play the game. That's ridiculous. Of course that's not true. There's physical things in a physical universe, but the physical universe itself doesn't dictate morality. Hold on, let me hear what he said again.
Laws that dictate how things work in the universe, they are the ultimate arbiters of what is or isn't in our best interest. What
is and isn't in our best interest, that doesn't make sense. There's no such thing as best interest, and like, you cannot ask a physicist what is in human best interest without the physicist appealing to something other than physics. It's ridiculous. Of course that's not true. Humans, depending on your point of view, humanity either decides what their best interest is, or they discover what their best interest is, but they would discover that in a level of reality that isn't purely physical, depending on where you are on this sort of thing. But saying that the physical universe dictates what humanity's best interest is an insane proposition. Of course that's not true. It's the is-ought problem. Like, unless you want to take on Hume and make an explicit argument to me why the is-ought problem doesn't exist, I would love to hear it. I am dying to hear it. I am so interested in hearing it. But he's not making it. He's actually kind of assuming it like it's a given. And it's ridiculous. I don't understand how he thinks this is a reasonable thing to say, to be honest with you.